I found letters from my mom to her secret lover 1 week after her funeral. It started with a cardboard box. Just one box, tucked away in the attic, buried beneath holiday decorations and old yearbooks. I wasn't even looking for anything. I just wanted to feel close to her. I thought maybe I'd find a photo, a scarf, something that still smelled like her perfume. I didn't expect to find her secrets. My name's Nathan. I'm 31. And for most of my life, I believed my mom was a saint. The kind of woman who baked cookies for every school fundraiser, who worked 2 jobs after Dad left, who never missed a birthday, even when we barely had money for candles. She was soft-spoken, a little old-fashioned, and fiercely loyal, or so I thought. The funeral had been quiet. Too quiet. I stood there, watching her casket lower into the ground, holding back tears I thought would never stop. It was a rainy Thursday. Gray sky, cold wind, muddy shoes, the whole thing felt surreal. She was gone. Just like that. But it wasn't until a week later that I started realizing maybe I didn't know her at all. I was cleaning out her house. My sister Claire and I had split the task. She took the kitchen and living room. I got the attic and garage. That's when I found it. A box labeled only with my mother's handwriting. For Nathan. If something happens. It didn't look like much. Just an old shoebox, taped shut, dusty as hell. But the second I peeled it open, I felt the air shift around me. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Some still sealed. Some folded and worn from being opened and reread. All of them addressed to the same person. Always M. At first, I thought maybe it was an old friend. Someone she lost touch with over the years. But then I read the first one, and my entire world cracked open. It kills me to sit beside him and pretend. I wish it was you holding my hand instead. But I can't hurt the kids like that. They need the version of me that fits inside this house. I read those words over and over. I didn't want to believe it. My mom. The woman who built her entire life around raising us. She'd been in love with someone else. And not just once. Not some passing fling. This was a decades-long emotional affair. Some of the letters were dated back to when I was in elementary school. Others as recent as 6 months before she died. She wrote to him like he was her real home. She signed every letter the same way. Forever your M. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the attic floor until sunrise, surrounded by memories that no longer made sense. The bedtime stories, the Sunday dinners, the way she used to look out the kitchen window when she thought no one was watching. It wasn't wistful nostalgia. She was thinking about someone else. The next morning, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I called my dad. We hadn't spoken much since the funeral. He'd shown up late, left early, and looked like he was sleepwalking through the whole thing. They'd been divorced for over 10 years, but he still wore the same watch she gave him on their anniversary. I asked him, straight out, "Did Mom ever talk about someone named E?" The silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. "You found the letters," he finally said. It wasn't a question. It was a confirmation. I asked, "How long did you know?" His answer? "Since before you were born." My hands went numb. My throat closed up. Before I was born? That would mean what? That she was already emotionally gone when they were still pretending to be in love? That my entire childhood had been built on some kind of careful performance? I asked who he was. My dad wouldn't say. He just muttered something about old scars and hung up. That's when I knew I needed answers. Real ones. I took every letter down from the attic, laid them out in order by date, and started reading. Chronologically, like I was watching her life unravel in slow motion. And that's when I noticed something strange. Every few months, there'd be a gap. No letter. No entry. No mention of E. But when the letters picked up again, they always referenced some kind of trip. A weekend conference. A last-minute work retreat. My mom hadn't been working for decades, yet the letters made it sound like she was always traveling for something. And the weirdest part? She wasn't writing from home. The return addresses were always different. Different cities. Different states. Motel stationery, old cafe napkins, even a few hotel envelopes with "Do Not Disturb" printed in faded ink. She was seeing him, not just writing. She was meeting him, secretly, while raising us like nothing was wrong. I felt sick. Everything started to feel false. Her favorite songs? Shared memories? Were they even ours? Or echoes of a life she had with someone else? But the worst part came when I found the envelope at the bottom of the box. It was newer, clean, unsealed. Inside was one page. Just one. No date. No return address. Only 3 sentences. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for what I kept from you. But I was never meant to choose between love and family. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went to the kitchen, grabbed the whiskey she kept hidden behind the spice rack, and poured myself a glass. It tasted like betrayal. I kept telling myself she had her reasons. But every letter I opened just made the truth harder to swallow. This wasn't some innocent, buried love story. This was a double life. And the man she wrote to, the man she dreamed about for decades, was still out there. Somewhere. Breathing. Living. Knowing everything, while I knew nothing. And then, I found the photo. It was tucked into the very last envelope, behind a letter dated just 3 months before she died. A black and white photo. 2 people sitting on a bench in Central Park. My mom, and a man I'd never seen before. He was holding her hand, smiling, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. But she wasn't smiling back. She was crying. That's when I realized something. This man, he had broken her heart too. I flipped the photo over. In my mom's handwriting, just 4 words. He chose her again. And right then, I knew. This story wasn't over. It hadn't even started. Because whoever this man was, he wasn't just her secret. He was the reason she lived a lie. And now, I was going to find him. No matter what it cost me. I didn't want to believe the photo meant what I thought it did, but the pain in my mother's eyes said everything. She was in love with a man who never fully chose her. And now that man was walking around free. Unaware, I was holding the wreckage he left behind. I kept staring at that bench photo like it could talk. He looked mid-50s. Salt and pepper hair. A long coat, like the kind you only wear in cold cities. His body leaned toward her like he couldn't help it. But her shoulders, they told the real story. Curved inward. Guarded. She wasn't there to laugh. She was there to say goodbye. Or to be left again. That broke something inside me. I used to think my mother was unshakable. The kind of woman who could handle anything life threw at her. But that photo said otherwise. It told me she had secrets heavy enough to crush her. And now, they were mine. I stared at that one line she wrote. He chose her again, and my mind started spinning. Who was her? A wife? Someone he went back to? A family of his own? God, had he been married the whole time? I needed answers. But all I had was a box of love letters and one blurry photograph. So I did what anyone with a broken heart and an internet connection would do. I went digging. I scanned the photo, uploaded it into a facial recognition plugin one of my old tech buddies built. It's not public stuff, definitely not legal. But I needed it. He owed me a favor. And I was desperate. While the scan ran, I went back to the letters. Started marking locations. Every time my mom mentioned a hotel, a city, a street name, I wrote it down. There was a pattern, but not the kind that jumps out. It was subtle, like they met in transit. Chicago in '97, Denver in '03, Boston in 2010. Always places with airports, train stations, or convention centers. They weren't building a life. They were stealing time. Something else struck me too. Not once did she ever use his full name. Just E. Sometimes she'd call him L. Other times, my moon. That one hit hardest. I remembered her saying that when I was a kid. The moon's out, time to tuck in. She'd whisper it like a lullaby. I thought it was just her thing. Turns out it wasn't for me. It was for him. My stomach turned. I slammed the lid on the box and paced the apartment. I kept asking myself, what was I hoping to find? Some excuse? A reason to forgive her? I didn't even know who I was mad at. Her, for living a lie? Or him for letting her? Maybe both. Maybe neither. The next morning, I woke up to a ping. My buddy texted, "You're not gonna believe this. Check your email." I opened the file and stared. There he was. The man from the photo. Name, Elliot Crane. Age, 58. Occupation, International Policy Advisor, former consulate attaché, Harvard grad. Lives in D.C. Married. Wife, Julia Crane. 3 children. He had a whole life, a public one. Meanwhile, my mom had lived in shadows. I sat there, hands trembling, scrolling through his press clippings and university alumni write-ups. He looked exactly like the man from the photo, except shinier, slicker, like a man polished for cameras and podiums. I found a video of him giving a lecture at Georgetown. He was smart, charismatic, confident, and he had that voice, the same tone I'd heard in some of Mom's letters when she'd quote him. "I'm not perfect, Maeve, but I've never stopped loving you." Maeve. That was her name. My mom. I had to pause the video. Just hearing that line in his voice made my skin crawl. I took a walk to clear my head, past the corner cafe she used to love, the florist where she always bought those tiny white lilies, the park where she used to sit with a book, pretending not to watch people walk by. Had she ever brought him here? Had he ever walked these same streets? The thought made my chest tighten. He had a family, a real one, a wife, kids, grandkids probably. And all that time, he had my mother tucked away like some secret diary. I had a decision to make. Let it go, or confront the man who held her heart hostage. I chose the second, because I needed to understand. I needed to know what she saw in him, and why she waited her whole life for someone who never stayed. I booked a train to D.C. the next morning, packed a bag, took the box of letters, the photo, and nothing else. Claire texted, asking where I was. I ignored it. She wouldn't understand. She'd tell me to let it go, to grieve and move on. But this wasn't grief anymore. It was justice. Or maybe revenge. I didn't know which. All I knew was this. Someone had to look Elliot Crane in the eye and say the one thing my mother never got to. Why didn't you choose her? You ever ride a train with a box of your mother's love letters on your lap? It feels like holding someone else's heart. Still beating. Still bleeding. The whole ride to D.C., I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd say to him. What kind of man keeps a woman waiting for 30 years, then disappears when she needs him most? I pictured knocking on his door, shoving the photo in his face, making him read every word she wrote. I wanted him to feel it. Every missed call. Every lie. Every night, she cried herself to sleep while he kissed his wife goodnight. But when the train finally pulled into Union Station, all that fire turned to ice. What if he denied it? What if he told me she meant nothing? I wasn't ready for that. Still, I kept moving. I checked into a cheap hotel near DuPont Circle and stayed up all night rereading her last few letters. One stuck out. It was dated 4 months before she died. I know this was never fair. I know you gave me what you could, but I can't keep being the secret you forget when the lights are on. I need to know, was any of it real? God. She was begging him for truth. And I had to believe he never answered. Because if he had, those words wouldn't have made it onto paper. The next morning, I walked past the building where he worked. A tall glass tower with a security desk and an elevator that never stopped buzzing. I stood across the street, watching people come and go, wondering if one of them had any idea who he really was. Eventually, I found his personal website. A polished About Me page with smiling headshots and public contact info. I clicked on Request a Meeting, filled out the form using a fake business alias, and hit send. I didn't expect a reply. But 5 hours later, I got one. Mr. Crane would be happy to meet. Tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Please come alone. It felt like a trap, but I said yes. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not how she looked in the hospital, pale and worn down, but young, alive, laughing in the kitchen while she stirred soup with one hand and held the phone to her ear with the other. Who was she talking to? Back then, I assumed it was Claire. Or maybe a neighbor. Now I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I dressed in all black. Not intentionally, but when I looked in the mirror, it felt right. Grief-colored. Final. At 11:25, I walked into the building. The security guard checked my name against the guest list and pointed me to the private elevator. Top floor. When the doors opened, I stepped into a glass-walled conference room with a skyline view, and there he was. Elliot Crane, the man my mother waited for. He looked exactly like the photo, just a little grayer. Sharp suit, confident stance. But his eyes, they shifted the moment he saw me. Like he knew. Mr. Grant, he said, holding out a hand. I didn't take it. I just dropped the photo on the table between us. His eyes dropped, locked on it. A beat passed, then another. When he finally looked up, his face had changed. Softened. Maeve's son, he said quietly. He didn't ask. He knew. I didn't speak. I just waited. He sat down slowly, like the weight of the past had just slammed into his chest. How long have you known? He asked. Since last week, I said. After the funeral. He nodded, almost sadly. She said you'd be the one to find them. Them. The letters. He knew. Of course he did. She kept every word. I said. He looked out the window. I kept mine too, he said. I froze. You wrote back. He nodded. Every single time. My stomach turned. Then why weren't they in the box? His silence answered that. He'd kept his own copies. Hidden. Separate. Like she was a secret he cherished privately, but never dared claim in the open. I pulled out one of her letters, the one where she begged him for clarity, and slid it across the table. Answer her, I said. Now. He picked it up with trembling hands. Read it once. Twice. When he finally looked at me, his voice cracked. It was real, he said. All of it. Then why didn't you choose her? The question snapped the air between us like a wire. He closed his eyes. I was a coward, he said. Simple. Honest. Too late. She waited her whole life. I know. She died thinking she wasn't enough. His jaw clenched. That's not true. Then why wasn't she in your life? He looked away. Because I had already ruined too much. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I leaned forward. She forgave you. In those letters, even when she was hurting, she always forgave you. Why couldn't you do the right thing, just once? He didn't have an answer. He just whispered. She was the only woman who ever truly knew me. A long silence followed. Then he said something I didn't expect. She left you something. I blinked. What? She gave it to me. A month before she passed. Told me not to open it unless someone came looking. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small envelope. My name was on it. In her handwriting. Hands shaking, I took it. The paper was soft, worn at the edges. I opened it and pulled out a single page. It wasn't long. Nathan, if you're reading this, you found the pieces I couldn't say out loud. I'm sorry for the ways I failed you. I tried to give you everything I had, but part of me always belonged to him. Please don't hate him. And please don't hate me. We all live half-lives sometimes. Love, Mom. I couldn't breathe. I folded the letter slowly and slipped it into my jacket. Then I stood up. Elliot looked like he wanted to speak, but I stopped him. You had your chance. I turned to leave. But right before I reached the door, he said something that froze me in place. You're not the only one she left behind. I turned slowly. What does that mean? His eyes met mine. And what he said next changed everything. You have a brother. You have a brother. Those 4 words hit harder than any secret, any letter, any photo. A brother. From him? From her? From both? I just stood there, door half open, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and rage. No, I said, almost laughing. No, that's not possible. Elliot didn't flinch. He's 27. His name is James. My mind went blank. I did the math without even meaning to. That would put his birth around the time Mom took that sabbatical, a year she told us she was helping a friend in crisis across the country. I remembered how vague she'd been. How Claire and I stayed with our aunt that whole summer. She had a baby and never told us. My voice came out cracked. You're saying she had another child and just left us in the dark? He nodded slowly. She was trying to protect you. That word again. Protect. It always sounds noble when someone wants to cover up something shameful. But right then, it felt like another betrayal. Where is he? I asked. Elliot paused. New York. Works in publishing. I see him occasionally. That phrasing lit me up. Occasionally, I snapped. You mean to tell me you get to be in his life? After abandoning my mom, you still gotta play daddy? He didn't fight back. Didn't defend himself. I didn't say it was fair, he said. I just said it was true. I turned to leave again, faster this time. But he stopped me with one last sentence. He knows about you. I froze mid-step. What? James. He knows you exist. He's always wanted to meet you. My mouth went dry. This wasn't a lie you could half swallow and forget. This was a collision. 2 lives. 2 sons. 1 family split by silence. I left the building without another word. Walked straight into the street like the air outside could cleanse me. But it didn't. The wait followed. That night, I sat on my hotel bed, staring at the envelope again. My mother's words echoing in my head. We all live half-lives sometimes. What kind of half-life did she live to raise 2 children apart from each other? And how many pieces of her did we never get to know? I pulled out my laptop. Typed in James Crane. Hundreds of results popped up. Most were generic, LinkedIn profiles, author bios, college alumni pages. But one stood out. A contributor column for an indie publishing house. There was a headshot. And just like that, I saw his face. Same jawline as me. Same eyes. But softer. His hair was lighter, dirty blonde, like Mom's used to be when she was young. He looked happy. Whole. Like a person who never had to wonder why his mother stared out the window at night. Or cried at songs no one else understood. I stared at the screen for hours. Kept refreshing it like something would change. Like maybe the truth would rewrite itself if I just stared long enough. Eventually, I sent him an email. Simple. Direct. James, I believe we're brothers. I'd like to meet. I don't want anything from you, just the truth. Nathan. No subject line. No flair. I hovered over send. My hand shook. Then I clicked. 3 hours passed. No reply. I turned off my laptop. Lay back. Stared at the ceiling. My head was buzzing with memories that didn't feel real anymore. Birthdays. Holidays. Her laugh. Her perfume. Every one of them touched by lies. And now, I was supposed to welcome this stranger? What was I even chasing? Closure? Connection? Or some proof that I wasn't just the leftover son from a life she almost left? Then, at 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. New email from James Crane. I opened it slowly. Nathan, I've waited my entire life for you to find me. Say when and where. I'll be there. James. Just like that, a door opened. But I didn't feel peace. I felt terror. Because I knew, once I stepped through that door, there was no going back. I've waited my entire life for you to find me. That one line from James kept echoing in my head. Not nice to meet you. Not who are you. Just waited. Like this was something inevitable. Like he knew this moment would come. And I couldn't decide if that made him feel like family or something else entirely. I stared at his message for 10 full minutes before replying. Tomorrow. 4 p.m. Washington Square Park. The Arch. I didn't want to meet him in some quiet cafe or dim bar. I wanted open air. A public place. Somewhere the weight of this thing wouldn't crush us. He answered within 2 minutes. I'll be there. The train to New York felt different. Like I wasn't just traveling, I was crossing over. From one life into another. From the son who thought he knew everything, into the brother who realized he didn't even know half. When I arrived, the city smelled like hot pavement and pretzels. People moved with purpose. Like they had somewhere to be, someone to meet. I wondered if they could see it in me. That I was about to meet a stranger with my mother's blood in his veins. I got to the Arch early. Sat on a bench, watching street performers juggle in front of NYU students who barely looked up from their phones. At 3:58 p.m., a guy in a denim jacket slowed as he approached. He looked unsure, nervous, hopeful. Then our eyes locked. I stood. He walked over. And for a second, neither of us said a word. We just stared. Then he let out a breath and laughed under it, like he couldn't believe I was real. You're taller than I pictured, he said. You're blonder, I replied. It broke the tension. We sat, not shoulder to shoulder, but close enough. He looked down at his hands, then back at me. I never knew her. Not really, he said. I only met her twice. That stopped me cold. Twice? Wait, she met you? I asked. He nodded. Once when I was 10. She came to my school, pretended to be a friend of my dad's. She gave me this toy spaceship. I didn't know who she was. He smiled like the memory hurt. Second time was right before she died. I couldn't speak. He kept going. She called out of the blue. Said she wanted to see me before things ended. She didn't say what was ending, just that time was running out. I swallowed hard. What did she say? James looked up at the sky like he was trying to find the words written in the clouds. She said she was sorry. That she made a choice a long time ago to protect everyone by staying away. But that she regretted not fighting harder. I felt a tear hit my shirt before I even realized it had fallen. Did she say anything about me? He nodded. She said you were strong. Too strong for your own good sometimes. That you carry things for other people even when no one asks. That hit like a punch to the ribs. She also said, James added, softer now, that if I ever met you, to give you this. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small tin box. I recognized it instantly. It was the same one Mom used to keep sewing needles in when I was a kid. Only now, it wasn't full of thread. He handed it over. Inside were 3 things. A tiny silver locket. A key. A letter. The locket held 2 photos. On one side, me and Claire as kids. On the other, James as a baby. She kept him, not just in memory, but close. I picked up the key. It was old. Faded. Like something you'd use on a storage unit. What's this open? I asked. James shook his head. She didn't say. Just that it was where the truth lives. My chest tightened. I unfolded the letter. It was written in her handwriting, but the ink was lighter, shakier. Nathan, if you've come this far, you deserve every answer. The lockbox is in Vermont. My old friend Celia has it. She promised to guard it for me. Inside, you'll find the truth about me. About him. About you and James. Please, don't hate me when you read what's there. Love always. Mom. I looked at James. He looked at me. And just like that, we both understood. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the start of something we were never meant to find. But now, we had the key, and nothing would ever be the same again. We left for Vermont the next morning. No plan, no hotel, no clue what we'd find. Just a name, a key, and the weight of every truth we'd ever been denied. James drove. I sat in the passenger seat, the box clutched tight in my lap like it might fly open and reveal everything early. I kept rereading her letter. Not because I didn't understand it, but because part of me hoped it would change. That maybe, just once, the next time I looked, she'd say something different. She didn't. We pulled into the town of Middlebury by late afternoon. It was one of those postcard places, red brick storefronts, a diner that smelled like bacon, and a bookstore that hadn't changed its window display in a decade. James parked in front of a tiny flower shop called Celia's Garden. Neither of us had to say it. This was the place. We stepped inside. The air smelled like lavender and old paper. A woman in her 60s looked up from behind the counter. Short gray curls, kind eyes, sharp, assessing gaze. She didn't say welcome. She said, "You must be Maeve's boys." We froze. She smiled gently. "She told me one day you'd come." James stepped forward first. "You're Celia?" She nodded, then looked at the tin box in my hands. "She gave you the key?" I nodded. She disappeared into the back without another word. A minute later, she returned with a wooden lockbox. Worn, heavy, dark oak. She set it gently on the counter. "No one's touched it but me." She said if you ever came, you'd be ready. I swallowed hard. James put a hand on my shoulder, and I turned the key. The lock clicked. Inside were 4 items. A thick envelope labeled to my sons. A hospital bracelet. A manila folder with legal documents. A VHS tape. Yeah, VHS. I stared at it like it was a fossil. Celia spoke again. "There's a VCR in the back room." She asked me to keep one. We didn't wait. She led us into a dusty little break room with a floral love seat and a boxy old TV balanced on a crate. James slid the tape in, and the screen flickered. Then my mother appeared. Not frail, not sick, but young. Mid-30s, maybe. Long brown hair pulled into a loose braid. No makeup, just her and the camera. She smiled nervously. "Hi, Nathan." "And James, if you're watching this, it means you've found each other. And I'm gone." Her voice cracked on that last word. She took a breath, steadied herself. "There are things I never said. Things I never could say, not out loud. But you deserve to know everything." She looked straight into the camera. "James, I gave you away because I was scared. Not of being a mother again, but of what it would do to Nathan. He was only 4. He didn't understand why his father left. I was barely keeping us together. And when I found out I was pregnant again." She paused, wiped her eyes. "I didn't know how to love you both without breaking something." James looked down at his hands. "I couldn't breathe. But I didn't abandon you," she said, more firmly now. "I visited. I wrote. Elliot promised me he'd keep you safe. He told me he'd raise you with kindness, that he'd protect you from the shame of being the other child." Her tone shifted. "Harder now." "He didn't. Not the way I hoped. He gave you his name, yes, but he gave you distance too. And I know that hurt you, James. I know." Tears were falling freely down his face now. "And Nathan," her voice softened again, "I raised you with everything I had, every ounce of strength, but I never stopped loving your brother, or Elliot. And I know that hurt you too, even if you didn't know why." She looked away from the camera, whispered something, then turned back. "I lived my whole life trying to keep pieces of myself from colliding. But love doesn't work that way, and secrets don't stay buried forever." She leaned forward. "One final look. One day, I hope you both find each other and realize you're not broken pieces. You're brothers." Then the screen went black. Silence. Just the hum of the old TV and the sound of 2 grown men holding back sobs. Celia handed us tissues without a word. We sat there, stunned, like someone had split the world open. She didn't lie out of malice. She lied out of fear, but the damage was the same. After a long silence, I finally opened the envelope marked to my sons. Inside were 2 handwritten letters, one for each of us. Mine read, "Nathan, you were always the strong one, the one who watched everything, even when I thought you didn't. I know this truth shakes everything you believed in, but I hope, one day, you'll forgive me. Not for what I did, but for not telling you sooner. You deserve the full truth." I just didn't know how to give it without losing you. I love you. I always have. Mom. James read his silently, then folded it with shaking hands. I hated her for years, he said quietly. Thought she didn't care. Thought she picked you. I looked at him. She didn't pick anyone. She lost both of us. Celia stepped forward and handed me the folder. Those are the adoption papers, she said. The real ones. She kept a copy. You'll want to see what's inside. I opened it slowly, and that's when I saw something I didn't expect. A third name. Another child. Someone else. But before I could speak, Celia whispered, "You're not done yet. You're not done yet." Celia said it so gently, like she knew she was about to shatter the last piece of us that hadn't already cracked. I stared down at the adoption papers. 3 names. One was James. One was Maeve, that was Mom. And the third, Ava Monroe. Not Crane. Not Grant. Not even listed as biological. Just legal guardian, Maeve Monroe. Temporary custody. 1998. I felt the air pull out of my lungs. James leaned over. Who the hell is Ava? Celia didn't speak right away. She just walked back into the front of the flower shop and returned with another envelope, thinner this time. She handed it to me carefully, like it was something sacred. "It's for Maeve," she said. "She told me to only give it to you if you asked about Ava." I opened it. Inside was a single photograph and a note. The photo showed a little girl, maybe 5 years old, with big brown eyes and curly hair pulled into crooked pigtails. She looked like she was caught mid-laugh, like someone just told a joke she didn't quite understand, but loved anyway. Behind her, a familiar park bench. Central Park. Same bench from Mom's earlier photo with Elliot. Same setting. Same timeline. Then I read the note. Nathan. Her name is Ava. She's your sister. Not by blood, but by choice. I took her in when no one else would. But I couldn't keep her. I tried. God, I tried. She's out there somewhere. Please find her. Mom. I read it 3 times before I looked up. Sister. I said aloud. James looked just as lost as I felt. Why didn't she ever tell us? Celia stepped in, folding her arms. She tried, but there was too much risk. What kind of risk? Celia hesitated, then answered with one word. The father. James and I traded a look. She continued. He wasn't like Elliot. He wasn't passive. He was dangerous. Maeve feared what he'd do if she didn't give Avi up. That's why she never told you. Not until now. My hands clenched around the photo. I don't care what he was. She was a child. Our sister. Celia nodded. I know. And that's why she made sure Ava was placed far from him. A closed adoption. New name. New life. James spoke softly. But not forever. No, Celia said. Your mother always hoped one of you would find her. She left behind clues. A breadcrumb trail, she called it. She reached into the counter drawer and pulled out a tiny stack of old postcards, bound by a rubber band. Each one had a different city, a different name signed at the bottom, all in Mom's handwriting. I flipped through them. Savannah, Columbus, Tulsa, Spokane, each postmarked to Celia, none addressed to us. She kept moving Ava. I whispered. Celia nodded. To protect her, every 2 or 3 years, until Ava turned 18. After that, your mom lost track. But the last card she ever sent was this. She handed me one more. It was a photo of a bookstore in Missoula, Montana, handwritten on the back. She loves stories. Just like you, Nathan. I stared at that line for so long it blurred. My voice barely came out. She knew I'd go. Celia smiled gently. She knew you couldn't let go without knowing the full story. I looked at James. He gave the smallest nod. We didn't need to speak. The next morning, we were on the road again. Cross country this time. 17 hours and 2 motel stops through back roads and winter towns, chasing the last echo of a woman we thought we knew. Chasing someone who might not even want to be found. But we had to try, because she was ours. Even if the world didn't see it that way. We pulled into Missoula just after sunset. Snow on the rooftops. Air cold enough to bite through our jackets. We found the bookstore. Small. Warm lights spilling out onto the sidewalk. A help wanted sign in the window. We stepped inside. The bell above the door jingled. A woman at the counter looked up. Late 20s. Curly dark hair. Same eyes as the girl in the photo. My pulse spiked. James stopped breathing. She froze when she saw us. Like something deep inside her recognized something she couldn't explain. I stepped forward slowly. Ava. Her expression shifted. Cautious. Guarded. Curious. Yeah. I swallowed. My name is Nathan. This is James. I paused, then said it, clean. True. We're your brothers. She didn't speak. Not for a long time. Just stood there, staring at us like we were ghosts that had wandered into her store. I could see the war behind her eyes, logic fighting instinct, disbelief clashing with recognition. Finally, her voice broke the silence. Who sent you? Not hello. Not what do you mean, brothers? Just that. Who sent you? It said everything. She'd spent her life looking over her shoulder. James stepped forward, gentle, careful. Our mother. Maeve. Ava flinched at the name. She stepped out from behind the counter, never breaking eye contact. She's dead, isn't she? I nodded. Her breath hitched. But she didn't cry. She looked braced, like she'd already imagined this day, more than once. She used to write me, she said quietly. Cards. Little notes tucked into books. Always unsigned, but I knew it was her. The way she spoke. No one else ever talked to me like that. She paused. I stopped getting them after I turned 18. I swallowed hard. She lost track. She tried to protect you. Ava gave a half laugh. Not bitter. Not kind either. She said that word a lot. Protect. Funny how protection and abandonment can look so similar when you're 5. Her voice cracked on the last syllable. And finally, her eyes glistened. I reached into my coat pocket. Pulled out the photo. This was you, wasn't it? Central Park? She took it, stared at it for a long beat, and nodded. I remember the pigeons. She let me feed them with my hands. Said it was okay, just this once. She pressed the photo to her chest. James stepped closer. She never forgot you. She left me. Ava snapped. Too fast, too raw. The pain shot out like a reflex. But then she exhaled. But I never forgot her either. I held out the envelope. The one labeled to my sons, with a third letter we hadn't opened. The one Mom left for her. Ava took it with trembling hands. We watched as she read, slowly, word by word. Her shoulders shook. Her knees buckled just slightly, like her foundation cracked under the weight of finally being seen. When she finished, she looked up. Eyes red. Voice soft. She said I'd find you. Said you'd come for me someday. She was right, James said. And that's when she did it. She stepped forward and hugged me. Then James. Tight. Desperate. Familiar. Like she'd been missing us her whole life. And maybe she had. We sat in the back room of the bookstore for hours. She told us everything. How her adoptive parents were kind, but distant. How she never felt rooted anywhere. How she used to invent stories about a big brother who would someday find her and take her away. She thought it was just a fantasy. I used to picture you both, she said, in different versions of the same dream. Sometimes we lived in a cabin, sometimes on a beach, but you were always there, always looking for me. I blinked back tears. She looked at me. You really didn't know until the funeral? I nodded. I found a box of letters, hidden in the attic. It started there. She smiled through the hurt. She always said stories mattered, even the messy ones. Then, softer, especially the messy ones. Eventually, the conversation turned quiet. The three of us sitting there in silence. Different stories. Same blood. Same woman. Same wound. Before we left that night, Ava gave me a book. A first edition. Worn spine. Marked up margins. Inside the cover, in her handwriting. To Nathan, thanks for finding me. To James, thanks for coming with him. To all of us, let's not wait another lifetime. Ava asterisk. We hugged again. And when I walked out onto the snowy street, I realized something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not peace. Not closure. But connection. This wasn't the end of the story. It was a new chapter. We'd never be the kind of family that took Christmas photos in matching pajamas. We'd never get to ask her the hard questions face to face. But we had each other. And sometimes, that has to be enough. As we drove away, James turned to me. So what now? I looked out at the snowy road ahead, then down at the box of letters in my lap. Now, I said, we tell the truth. The whole thing. He raised an eyebrow. Why? I looked at him. At the life we just unearthed. At the sister we just found. At the lies we refused to inherit. Because someone else out there is living half a life, I said. And they deserve to know they're not alone. Some people leave behind heirlooms. Others leave houses, jewelry, bank accounts. My mother left us breadcrumbs and a map back to each other. I used to think truth was something clean, black and white, sharp as glass. But the older I get, the more I realize. Truth is a tapestry. Frayed, tangled, stained in places you don't expect. But it's real, and that makes it beautiful. James now calls every Sunday. Ava sends us poems she writes in the margins of receipts and napkins. She still lives above that little bookstore in Missoula. And me? I finally brought the box of letters home. Not to bury it, but to leave it on a shelf. Open. Visible. Because the past isn't something you hide in the attic. It's something you carry with you, with every scar, every secret, every second chance. Mom used to tell me stories before bed. Now, I tell them for her. And this one? This messy, heartbroken, miraculous story? It's ours. All of it.